Well, today's a heavy pruning day here at Oklahoma Gardening thanks to that early freeze back in November. And if you'll remember, when it occurred, we told you that there's probably going to be a lot of damage on different fruits and ornamentals, and that it's best just to wait. And here we are around the middle to the end of April, and we're starting to see some response from some of the plants that are going to pull through and at least identify where the damage is. Take, for example, on this hardy hibiscus. On any given winter, it may kill it back to the ground, but some strange times it may even kill the root system. But fortunately for us, we're starting to see some of the sprouts come open, and we can tell that we've pretty much lost all the top growth. So again, we're just going to go in and pull that out and let the suckers come up and make our new plant. So at least we didn't lose the entire plant. But that's not the case on one of the ones over here. You've seen us talk about our wisteria from time to time. It's actually 6 years old. We never did get any blooms on it, but it was starting to make a nice scaffold plant for us on our arbor. Now, if you look at it and you scrape any of the branches up here, it looks like it's still alive. You're seeing a little bit of green tissue. But if you look at the buds, they never did push out. And this time of year they should be doing so. So we started investigating it a little bit closer, and as we went closer to the ground and we peel the bark back, you can see that it killed it 6-8 inches from the ground, just like it did with the fruit trees that we did the segment on earlier in the year. So again, we've lost the wisteria, although again we're starting to see some of the buds come out, and we could leave that, let those try to sucker up and retrain it, but probably what we're going to do is just get the chainsaw to this one or dig it out, because really there's not going to be a lot of time for us to try to get it back to that point. So we'll probably just replant. Now let me show you some other plants that weren't so fortunate either and show you how they're coming along. You know, many of the conifers or evergreens around the state had a lot of trouble from the winter too. Now we were pretty lucky with ours. We got just a little bit of a bronzing cast to it from the cold temperatures again in November and then some of the later freezes. But many of you probably have individual branches on pines and evergreens that have died back completely. So again, you should be able to tell if they're going to put any new regrowth on them. So don't forget to look at your evergreens as well. Now some of our shrubs here that didn't do so well are the cotoneaster, and we had some of the low growing ones here at the end of one of our beds we're trying to make to a perennial bed. And again, these are usually fairly decent plants for us, but this year they were killed clear to the ground. Now we are going to go ahead and dig ours up because they were overgrowing the area anyway. But again, if you'll notice, they're suckering out right at the basal part. So we could cut them back and try to force some new growth on them and save the plants, but under these circumstances, we're going to go ahead and dig them up and remove them. But again, don't forget to check, because sometimes it can be misleading. They can look like they're even alive at the top and then killed off right at the ground level. In this case, they are suckering back though. Now, some other plants, it kind of depends on the winter, are the crepe myrtles. Most of the time here in Stillwater anyway, our crepe myrtles will get killed back at least 8, 10, 12, maybe 18 inches. Last year, we even had some that we got growth back 2-3 feet up off the ground. Now over in the eastern part, southern part of the state, a lot of times you might even get them into a smaller tree-like appearance. But this year, it's pretty obvious what happened. We even had to take the chainsaw to this because we checked and we weren't getting any suckering up this high, so we've gone ahead and cut them back as close as we can to the ground. This particular one isn't suckering out yet, although we do have some others in the studio gardens that we're seeing some suckers pop up right at the ground level, so that's a good sign. But again, check your particular plants because they may be suckering up a little bit higher, and that's what's happening on some over here that I'd like to show you. Well, the plants in this particular bed really got a double whammy. This is some of our spirea, and this is the variety Anthony Water, which has a real nice pink blossoms. Well, you know how mild the winter was after we got that early freeze. These plants actually made it through the first freeze, but what happened was, we got these 2 or 3 late freezes, and they were starting to put on some new green growth, which got zapped from those late ones where we got down to around 18 just a few weeks ago here in Stillwater. So again, you've got to kind of wait and be patient. And what's happening is, if we look down in the plants, they're starting to sucker out pretty high. So we're only going to trim off, say maybe 4 inches of these just to kill or to get some of the top part that's killed out. And then we're going to allow them to go ahead and try to sucker up some more, and then we may have to prune them one more time a little bit closer if they don't sucker up for us. So again, you've got to be very patient. But one thing that I want to caution you about, when you see plants like this that are putting up the green growth, like on the Cotoneaster and some of the different ones, the first instinct for gardeners is to want to go in and fertilize them real heavily. Well, remember, the roots are still alive, but there's not a lot of good green growth to help take up that nutrient. So really, one of the worst things that you can do is to come in and fertilize them. Wait till you get a little bit more growth on them before you fertilize them. But anytime we're under drought conditions, it is a good idea to keep them watered. So we're going to hold off on the fertilizer probably another 3 or 4 more weeks, so they'll be able to use it a little bit more. We also had some hardy verbena here, and again, we just planted these last summer, so they didn't really get established for us, and it's still kind of cool for us, so it's going to be hard to tell. But right now we're just going to go in, cut those to the ground again, clean up the mess, give them a little bit more time because they like a little bit warmer temperature. But again, these are pretty reasonable for us to go in and replant if we should lose them. So again, go out and inspect your plants. If you haven't done so yet, you should be seeing some signs of new growth if they're going to come along. And whatever you do, try to be patient with the growth. And if you're not a patient gardener like some of us, you may just want to go ahead and replant it. But be sure and hold off on the fertilizer.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.